So if it's okay with you all, I'm going to share with you a hand model of the brain demonstration. And we use this with kids quite often because it's really easy for them to understand. So I'll hold up my hand. There are three parts to the human brain. The brain stem, which would be kind of where my wrist is, and that's at the back of your head where your neck and your head connect. The second part is called the limbic system, and you can see my thumb is kind of tucked right into my palm. And the limbic system is the second part of the brain to develop. The first is the brain stem, and that's known also as the fight or flight system. The third part of my hand model of the brain is the cortex or the cortical structure. And right at the front, where you can see where my knuckles are, that would be my forehead, and that is also known as the prefrontal cortex. Most educators and many parents know that name, prefrontal cortex, and it's the part of the brain that is implicated in learning. It's the part of the brain that activates when children are trying to take in instruction, they're trying to remember things, they're trying to put things together. So in our hand model of the brain, what's really important to understand is the biology. So when the fight or flight system is aroused or triggered, and that can happen from any number of ways. It can be somebody says something that is frustrating. It could be an event that happens, like you could break something or drop something and be really frustrated. It could be things like COVID-19, where there's just an underlying sense of stress based on being stuck at home and uncertainty about health and so on. So when the limbic system is highly stressed, the cortical structure, particularly the prefrontal cortex, literally goes offline. So with children, we say it's like flipping your lid. And what ends up happening when you flip your lid, and if you're listening, you've probably experienced this before, you sometimes do things without thinking. So you might react to somebody, you might say something or do something that you later regret. And so for children, because their prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed yet, that is a more pronounced event. And sometimes you might ask kids, well, why did you do that? And they say, I don't know, because they really don't know. Their thinking mind was offline while they're reacting to something. What mindfulness does is it actually does three things that are so relevant to education and so relevant to health that it's important to cover. So the first thing that mindfulness does is it downregulates or calms down the limbic system. So not just when kids are practicing for a few minutes every day, but all the time. So this becomes less reactive. And that just means that it will take more to get them frustrated, or take them more for them to kind of flip their lid. Kids become more resilient to that. The second thing that mindfulness does is it upregulates or increases the activity in the prefrontal cortex. And as I said, that is really critical for thinking, learning, understanding, remembering. So that matters a lot in education. So it makes this part of the brain more active. The third thing that it does, and what many people don't know, is when we think about resiliency, people are talking about that a lot today. We want to build resiliency, we want to develop resiliency. And there's a biological mechanism to resiliency. So as I said, when the brain when we get frustrated, the limbic system starts to go crazy and we flip our lid. Resiliency is the time that it takes for the thinking brain to reactivate. So this goes dark during a stress event. Thinking brain goes dark, nothing's happening. And so it takes a period of time for that to come back online so that thinking occurs. And you will probably know yourself in an event where something's frustrated you, depending on how frustrated you are, it could take you longer or less time to kind of come back to a more calm, neutral state. So that time is measured, and resiliency is the measure of how quickly or slowly that comes back online. Mindfulness speeds up the time that the thinking brain comes back online. Like, just consider that for a second. But really consider all three of those things. So with a brief practice of about 10 minutes a day, you can keep your fight or flight system in control. You can improve your thinking, and you can speed up the time that it takes you to get to a neutral state after a stress event.